first story deals with a subculture of heavy metal music that some feel is sending a dangerous message to your kids.
The forces of evil on the dark side of devil rock.
And I want to talk tonight about the devil and demons and witches and wizards.
And we just mix it up with hardcore and aggression and come out with something we think's an original sound.
Loud, fast, heavy, you know.
Well, what do you got?
What do you got?
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
You're listening to Riff Worship, the very merry podcast that loves to explore the holiday season, joy, the meaning of Christmas. I'm one of your hosts, Austin Paulson. With me, as always, are my friends in the holiday spirit, Justin Swindle, Dylan Adams. Merry Christmas, guys.
Happy holidays. You really stuck the landing on that
intro.
My
God, you tried.
What?
You tried.
Really? Nothing?
You tried. I'll give you an F for effort, man.
Wow. Y'all are a couple of Grinches.
Oh, it was not sticking.
You see the hat? I am Mrs. Nesbit. You see the hat?
Again, Swindle just bottom barrel. Like
For the love of the game. For the love of the game.
For the love of the game.
That's
I do love that sweater. I have not seen your hoodie yet.
Else?
I do love it. Would scare the shit out of me watching with anything else. Like Dylan gets to wear his Bart Simpson sweatshirt this year. I think it came in a little late last Christmas, I think, when we talked about Twisted Christmas.
Yeah.
Did you wear it on that one?
Yeah, I had it on.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yep.
Well, it's been a
365 days since then.
It's been a minute.
Time.
A lot of beer consumed since then.
That's right. I got the same one on still.
God.
I'm gonna hit the mic just like Swindle.
Like me.
Yeah.
Right.
I've actually never taken it off since our last Christmas episode.
Thing is just disintegrating.
All the episodes since then were recorded before.
That's right.
We
predicted a lot. It's frightening how close we got on a lot of shit. But yeah,
we're like Matt Groening.
That's right.
Just like him.
Just like him. Never a bad season. Not
every season.
Every season.
Just as good as the
last. Well, I will say this. I think just a couple days prior to the recording of this episode, The Simpsons had been on for 35 fucking years. The first episode ever was a Christmas episode. Was the first Christmas episode.
That's right.
Santa's Little Helper.
Apparently, there's a holiday special out right now with like Ned. I think it's about Ned Flanders, and I didn't know.
Oh.
Apparently, he has like 2 dead wives now. This show's been on a long time.
Yeah, Crowbar was the second.
Were they married?
They were seeing each other, I believe.
Damn.
He and Miss Edna.
Again, every season, so good.
Just as good as the last.
As good as the last one.
Yep.
Damn. Big rep, Edna. Crab Apple. I've been calling her Crab Apple. Or whatever he said.
Yeah. Wasn't it at some point this year, there was like a scare that the person that played Marge Simpson passed away, but
it was the Brazilian.
It was,
it was the South American actress. Yep.
Which is also RIP to that person.
Yep.
Sure. Very missed by friends and loved ones. I sent it immediately to somebody and was like, "Oh my god!" Called off of work.
I really love the Brazilian Marge Simpson. I can't come in today.
We're just nailing this Christmas episode so far.
Well, with all this Christmas fucking cheer we got going on here, we got to bring it down. Bring it real down. Bring it down.
Right into the dirt.
We're going to talk about the self-titled album by Crowbar.
Cheers, guys. Merry Christmas.
Of course.
So we've kind of talked about Crowbar before.
No.
We tried in January to talk about Oddfellows Rest together.
We tried.
3 times.
We tried together.
Oh my god, what
in
a
the
year.
Same room.
Yeah, we did.
In January.
We tried to do it in that Airbnb.
Your house.
With no Wi-Fi.
Right.
Then I fucked up the Zoom camera angles in my house, and also didn't have any lighting, so it was just pitch black. And then we recorded it basically the same way we always did, and it was a fun episode. And we got to talk to Sammy through it, and
we got trashed all 3 times too.
Every time. But we figured with the holiday season, the end of the year coming, and we got some other things kind of in the can that we're definitely going to share with you guys. We just wanted to talk about a record we all collectively enjoy. It's maybe not their best record, I'll say. And it doesn't even have my favorite song on it, because that is I Feel the Burning Sun. But
Pat's
collectively, as a package from front to back, my favorite record of theirs, 100%.
It's
mine.
One of the best. It's one of the best non-first albums.
Yeah.
Right. You could compare it to maybe like a Bloody Kisses to a Slow, Deep, and Hard, right?
Yeah.
Slow, Deep, and Hard was kind of considered a demo. Obedience Through Suffering was as well. It's really hard for me to. I usually go back and forth between 2 Crowbar records as being my favorite. Usually it's either Oddfellows Rest or Life's Blood for the Downtrodden, because it was my first record, and it's got Rex playing bass on that record as well, which is really cool. But it's got a couple cool tracks on it. I saw the videos for it, but then years later, I happened to see I saw the Beavis and Butt-Head clips, which we're going to talk about today. I mean, those are classic. But listening to this record, it's fucking great. It's got the hits on it.
Yeah.
More self-hatred on in a 30-minute block than I've ever fucking heard.
They're all hits. Every song on this album is a fucking banger.
That's right. Every one of them.
Well,
everyone.
I would say 9 of them are for sure.
Every one of them.
Every Crowbar song on this album is a banger.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah.
I know. So right out of the gate, I know that Swindle showed me this record. Guess what? At a party at my house. Never heard of this band before in my life. I'm glad you did. Again, probably not the best place or time to do it.
Everyone else.
I went in. Well, I was in my room away from the party, and I don't know why we got on this. I think it actually may have been like you were like, oh, they do like this crazy Led Zeppelin cover or whatever, and we just started rifling through the songs on the record. Blown away, and ever since that moment, it has had a deep impact. The movie starring Helen Hunt, I think. I don't remember.
Morgan Freeman was in that one. Yeah.
It has had a profound impact on my listening taste and bands that I like, writing. It changed the way I thought about heavy music, because by that point I was only listening to thrash metal and hardcore music and older hardcore music, really. But this was it changed everything for me. So thanks. Cheers. Merry Christmas. But I should ask, I don't know if I exactly remember how, or if you've ever told me how you discovered Crowbar.
Me? The I'm Broken video.
Yeah.
The shirt.
Phil was wearing a shirt, so I was
got to.
I was like, I'm gonna look up this whatever this Crowbar is. I'm gonna look that up. So I'm sure that's how I ended up listening to the self-titled album first, is because when I looked up videos, it probably was Existence is Punishment or I Failed or something.
You brought that up. Again, another Pantera kind of tie-in really got me into Crowbar. I got NOLA first.
Yeah.
I picked up NOLA. I found a used copy for $5. I was like, oh, wow. It's got this guy in it that I think is the same guy. It's that Pantera guy. I got to pick this up. And then I went, oh, these guys are all in other bands. I got to check this out. And then obviously the I'm Broken video, it's oh, okay, I got to check this out. And slowly but surely Crowbar kind of just crept its way, just drug its sluggy ass all through my listening.
Like a dog on the carpet.
Like a dog. Just drug his ass right through, and I've been fucked ever since. You go down the I Hate Gods, the Soylent Greens, the COCs, it's all there.
Yeah, I don't remember if I got the rest of our gang at the time into them before you were initiated, Dylan, or if like you also got all the other people into Crowbar at the same time that I was trying to get. But we were like the cause of essentially
absolutely.
For a period, like everyone in Bowling Green and Franklin that listened to Crowbar, it was like third or fourth wave because of me and Dylan.
So I distinctly remember this. The first time I met Justin Swindle was at a Waffle House, not terribly far from where I live. And I think the subject of Pantera came up, and like we both kind of went from there, right? Like you just go, that's kind of ground zero for a lot of these bands. And we started talking about Crowbar, and it kind of went from there to like, it went on to like Down and Hank 3 for whatever reason, like so on and so forth. And then it was just like, hey, Crowbar is one of the heaviest bands on the planet. No question. Like there's no second guessing, nothing like that. And it just went from there. It's like, I can't tell you how many jokes about being sad, how many jokes about being
definitely
depressed. Jokes about being sad and depressed have been brought up. And then I sadly am going to take credit for this because I think the phrase sludge metal Santa Claus has been stated many times throughout the years. It's like, oh yeah, he's just a sludge metal Santa Claus. And
over the years, and this came up again recently because last week, a very famous photo within our history as friends came up 10 years ago. We saw Crowbar in Louisville at Diamonds. It's like Diamonds
Diamond Pub
and billiards.
And I think I have told this story on the show before. Like I thought I was 21. I was not 21. And like my whole gripe was like, I could drink, but you guys made me drive like Swindle's car all the way up. Turned out that I was not. I was a few months short of being 21, but you were like, let's get the underage guy to drive us.
That's exactly what it was.
and drink like a whole case of Keystone Light.
Right.
Yeah.
We drank an 18-pack going up there. We got back, and it was like 10 o'clock or something by the time we got back. It was really early.
And then we were like, let's keep going.
Let's go to Rockies. Let's do it again. And I don't remember anything else from that night.
No.
That one thing I do remember is Austin locking my keys in my fucking SUV.
Thank God you had the pad on the side, which is like crazy. I don't think I've ever seen in a car before, but you were like, oh no, that's like, I was shitting bricks. You guys went inside to go to the bathroom, and I was like, what do I say? Like, we're an hour and a half away from like somebody's gonna have to like figure something out.
We ain't seeing Crowbar tonight, fellas.
Yeah, it was after.
I thought it was on the way up there.
It was on the way up there.
Oh, okay. All right. I remember also stopping at a public baseball diamond where children play, and you guys saw a porta potty and made me stop off to the side before we got there.
I don't remember that at all, but that sounds like all of us.
I do.
We got there. I was again blown away by the show, and then we were like,
"Oh, he was doing merch. It was perfect."
Yeah, he's doing merch like he often does with his wife. And
Robin.
Yep.
Robin.
Who I actually did get to see. I saw Crowbar not that long ago in Joliet, and again, still like the kind of the duo, kind of running the show all these years later. And I just remember, there was like a line for pictures. I was like, we got to go. Swindle did not want any part of it, but he was able to take he took a picture, all right.
I distinctly remember hearing Swindle go, "How's it going, Kirk?" And then like taking the photo.
Yeah.
But the best part of the photo was it's Austin. If you're looking at the photo, Austin's on the right, I'm on the left, and he's dead center of us. And he makes the line of like, "I'm dead sexy."
Yeah, or he's like, "Come on in, boys!" Like, because we were like, maybe we were a little shy to get close to him or whatever. He's like, "Come on in, boys! I'm dead sexy."
And it was a very blurry, unfocused photograph that I took.
It's there, and it will go up in this episode. I'm sure.
It's about 17 Keystone Lights deep of a photo.
So 17 Keystones. I had a full head of hair.
You did have hair.
Yeah,
I had a full head of hair at that point.
Then
Crowbar
Swindle
does
and I
that
got
to
to
you.
see Crowbar again in Nashville. There was like a High on Fire tour. I think Yautja also played that show.
That would make sense.
Ugh, sorry. And
Why are you burping directly into the
it's Christmas, baby. Come on.
Swindle, beat the shit out of that mic.
That's right. I mean, I'm just doing it to myself. I'm gonna have to like. I'll leave them in. It's fine. They're gonna enjoy it. My gift to you. But yeah, we got to see them exit in Crowbar High on Fire again.
Right.
Kind of like another band that kind of not like directly related, but they're all kind of in that bubble. And that was an amazing experience too. I've got to see them a few more times over the years, and it's just been consistent the entire time. Like the tone, the gruff, the Kirk, like it's all there.
Coors
It's always
Lights.
there. Coors
Coors
Light,
Lights.
which is another thing we should mention too. The thing that has become kind of like bigger than itself. We'll get to this album eventually, I promise.
Where's
but,
Waldo?
the Where's Waldo of like New Orleans sludge metal. Anytime over like the past 10 plus years of us being friends, when like Crowbar became like a thing that we all, were into and consistently love, or any of the NOLA bands really.
I'd say Pepper Keenan's a big part of that.
Oh
at this
yeah,
point.
there's if there is a picture of any time during these these careers that spanned like years and years, that if there's like a practice space or on stage or whatever, you can usually find a silver bullet somewhere. There's usually a Coors Light can, and so it became like this game of like find the Coors Light can, find the Coors, and then there's the fucking Pepper, the fucking
The
cherry,
Bus Invaders interview.
yep, with Pepper, where he's like, "What do you drink?" It could be anything too. It's like not alcoholic. It just be like, "What are you like sipping on tour?" Oh, I drink Coors Light all day long.
Deadpans it, moves on.
That's
Just
it.
keeps going.
Keep moving.
I want to bring this up. Swindle and I saw Crowbar together for the first time. We saw them in Louisville at the Phoenix Hill Tavern, which I don't believe exists anymore. It was Crowbar and Prong. And the venue, what, Swindle, probably 150, 200 cap, something like that. Tiny. Yeah. It's a bar. And it was right after the album with Cemetery Angels dropped. So we saw them on that cycle, and it's like, all right, we're fucking going to this. That's the show where we started. Well, Swindle was doing it before I was, but where it kind of became a routine of you go to see something heavy, you listen to Hank Sr. on the way back.
Which
Like,
I feel
that's
like
where
we've definitely done any show, but like you guys have carried that for years. And
Oh, yes.
Like,
Yep.
hey, we just saw this like gutting, like depressing band. Here's Hank Sr.
I think I've told y'all on the show, but I've definitely told y'all in real life. The reason I started doing that was just to get everyone else to fall the fuck asleep. like all the other people in the bands that we played in, I was like, I want to be silent in this car. Like, I'm going to put fucking Hank Sr. on and I hope everyone else falls asleep on the way home.
And I'm sure they did.
Not me. I was always too sad to ever sleep again after.
Still haven't. I guess with that said, maybe we should get into this. We've been burning the midnight cores a little bit. We need to get into this album. We've kind of covered this band's like history in the previous episode. Go listen to the Oddfellows Rust episode.
The Sammy trilogy.
The Sammy trilogy, of course.
Please listen to it. Please.
I'm broke. I got nothing left.
Please
I
buy
got
our
kids.
But yeah, you can go back, listen to that episode, kind of get a feel for. We went pretty in depth, as I remember. But we'll kind of coast through it here a little bit just to kind of give you a refresher. Crowbar has had many names before they eventually landed on Crowbar. Kirk Winstein essentially joined this hardcore band called Shell Shock in 1988, which also featured Jimmy Bower on drums. This band unfortunately collapsed when the guitarist Mike Hatch unfortunately took his own life. And, they decided to keep going. They changed their name to Aftershock and they replaced Mike with Kevin Noonan. And so I think with Aftershock, they have like a demo in '89. So you have Kirk, Kevin, Jimmy Bower, and Mike Savoy. That's what I'm gonna say his name is on bass.
There's some great live footage of Aftershock playing, and Kirk has a head of long fucking hair. Kind of looks like Tad Doyle, to be honest.
They have the infamous Noisy doc that like covered. It's like a multi-part series. I think Noisy like shut down and they took all the videos down, but somebody like re-uploaded all those parts to YouTube.
It's from a Japanese-based channel. Yes,
crazy.
I've got them saved. I watch it at least once a year.
Right. Yep. It's like the Wonderful Whites of West Virginia. I have to watch it every year. But they show some of those pictures, like those promo pictures. And yeah, Kirk's like the tight jeans, the high tops, the long hair, because as was the style at the time. Yeah.
I saw a great live video from that era in preparation for today's episode. And I don't know what the track was they were playing. I actually think it was just an Aftershock song, but it sounded like something off of Slow, Deep, and Hard. Like just immediate, like snail's pace, like the slowest song you could ever think of. And it's like, okay, yep, I see it. The Melvins and Typo were definitely listened to a lot. Probably the Repulsion demo even, which is Typo before Typo became that band.
So they went from Aftershock to Requiem, which
great name.
W Requiem.
Yeah, I know. Great name.
At this point, their bassist Mike left the band and was replaced by none other than Todd Strange,
Sexy T,
who was in the band for a long, long time, in Down, in a few other projects in the New Orleans area. They would eventually change their name to Slugs. They released two things. You got a demo in 1990. So you have Kirk, Kevin, Jimmy Bower, and Todd. Then they did a split with some other New Orleans bands as well. You have Sick, S-I-K, abbreviated. You also have The Detriments and Soylent Green, which is pretty crazy, 91.
Yep. That's probably that may have been pre-Ben Falgu singing for them.
Hey, hold on. I got some beer splashed on this laptop, so I gotta
staying in. Staying in.
Off the rails. He's gonna go just grab Bo and just rub across the keyboard.
Oh shit!
So what is it? Is it the first Ace Ventura where he dries his face on the dog, or is that the Mask?
Oh shit! I don't.
It's
remember.
Mask. Dries his face on the dog.
I remember there was like something about Slugs that we talked about with Sammy. I think where they had like the shirt was just like. Said something about being slow and like kind of like almost like kind of picking a fight with people. I feel like because that's what essentially would happen.
Yes.
I feel like it was like we're heavier than you. Like but like
it probably said heavy as balls or none heavy. I think it was the nutsack thing. Yes.
Oh well, he did talk about insert Sammy from that episode. Big Mike the Testicles.
Big Mike the Testicles. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Dude. So when they put out the split, you had a guitarist by the name of Travis. I looked at on this on like Encyclopedia of Talent, but the Slugs by the split lineup was Travis on guitar. You had Wayne Doobie Fabra on drums, who was a future member of Graveyard Rodeo.
Thank you. Which was one of Pepper Keenan's early bands. He played guitar in. Yes, before he joined COC.
Right, before his move to North Carolina, he was
correct.
Grew
up, he's a Louisiana boy.
Yes, right. Yeah, it's wild. So you have Wayne was also in Necrophagia as well.
Wow. Okay.
I believe.
Very early death metal band. Yeah. Very early death metal band. Kind of another weird Anselmo tie-in as well. I believe Phil was in Necrophagia for a while with his wife, first wife. Like Necrophagia is really into old Fulci horror films, stuff like that. Really kind of a lot of the Italian horror films. Like, if you're really into really dirty, grimy, old school sounding death metal, you'll really like that. They kind of took the Scream Bloody Gore thing and took it to a different level.
Love it. Love that shit. Make it sound like shit. No, I'm kidding. I do. I love that.
Not I.
I do love Scream Bloody Gore. Like, for all of its quirks, it's got character. I think it's not what. Anyway, I'm getting off topic.
Hey man, and I'm starting to believe it was the first death metal record and not that other band.
I do like that other band though too. Seven Churches is a great record as well.
Didn't say it wasn't, but it is what it is.
We're gonna be fighting by the time we get to No Quarter, I think. The way we're going right now.
So we're talking about Crowbar's self-titled album,
right? So Slugs by the Split, Travis, Wayne, Doobie, Fabra, Todd Strange, Kirk. Then they would land on Crowbar because apparently their label basically told them like, hey, there's another band called the Slugs. You got to change your name. Kirk had already apparently had like a side project by the name of Crowbar, so they kind of lifted that in 91. I did find a video of their first gig as Crowbar on July 1st, 1991 in New Orleans. So we've kind of like hinted on it a little bit with Obedience Through Suffering, their debut record in 1991. They talk about this record as like kind of just a glorified demo. It was like a rush job. I feel like the label really didn't know what it seemed like a kind of a newer label. And also the studio really didn't know what Crowbar was. They kind of also early stages of them kind of finding who they were as well. But the debut album comes out on a label called Grindcore International, which I remember from our Oddfellows Rest episode as being very strange because it is a label based in the Chicagoland suburbs. It's Plains, Illinois. It's very odd. It's like, how does that happen? I'm not really sure. The only thing that I remember being talked about in the Decibel Hall of Fame for the Oddfellows Rest is that there is a high school friend of Kirk's named Paul Bebeau, who helped ink their first deal with this label. So I'm not exactly sure what the connection is with that. He comes back because he worked for Mayhem Records, which basically put out Oddfellows Rest, and then also he also launched Spitfire Records.
Right.
There's a whole thing on that. Go listen to that episode. They also released a Chicagoland death metal band that Dylan, I know, is a fan of, Broken Hope. Their first record, Swamped in Gore, from 91.
Talk about a gruesome looking album cover for that one, who also did the album artwork for the album we're talking about today, as well as Obedience Through Suffering.
Yeah.
That's the brother, is it?
Mitch Nawara. So he honestly does some great work. Like, I love the album artwork for sure. Despite like, I think their differences at some point, because I know they were on this label for a little while up through Oddfellows Rest.
Yeah, the Obedience Through Suffering and self-titled artworks are really synonymous. Like, I mean, great pieces, very like almost Greek god. It makes me think of the Saturn eating his children image.
Yeah,
a lot.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a lot of their artwork, I would say, is like very striking like that. Like, I remember seeing, especially the self-titled, when Swindle showed it to me, I was like, what the this is crazy. Like, growing up in I'm not going to say it's exactly like this, but like, growing up in a Catholic household, and you kind of have like a somewhat of a Christ-like figure on the front cover of it, just kind of like tied up like that. I was like, oh, that's wild. This is hard. This is a wild album.
It's not nearly as striking as the Oddfellows Rest album cover,
This is true. The Tony Shalhoub cover.
Hey man, they went through that period where they had 2 albums with all their faces on it, and it was just it was all over from there. That was it, Oddfellows Rest and Equilibrium.
Yep.
Kirk did the Sum 41 thing before Sum 41 could even think about it.
I love that you mentioned Typo. Of course, is very important to this band. Carnivore, probably more specifically.
Yep.
I got into Carnivore at like a surprisingly young age, kind of searching through, the Apple suggested. For whatever reason, that was where how I got into a lot of like weirdly, I don't want to say like necessarily underground because I'm sure a lot of people knew about it, but like it wasn't the thing that was like, people probably tell you like listen to Metallica, listen to fucking Slayer, but
Yeah,
like they're
yeah.
never gonna I never knew an older person that was like listen to Carnivore.
This is the carnivore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the carnivore connection, carnivore is fantastic, but
Yeah.
that first Type O demo and album had such a profound effect, I think, on Kirk's writing and playing and everything that he did in combination with the classic rock influences and everything. I mean, the line I'm about to say, which is from Gravitational Constant on Slow, Deep, and Hard, is tonight's the night I paint the town red. I put another hole in my head. Unjustifiable existence. Like that's perfect poetry, right? That should be Crowbar in a nutshell. It's just Kirk has a different take on it, and Kirk is a champion of every band that he listens to. I mean, fuck. I think when Swindle and I saw him, he was I'm sure he was lit. Turns around, he's got those cargo shorts on, which are kind of his classic thing. Lifts up one leg, and I can't remember what was on that one, but he lifts up the other leg, and there's the Ghost album cover on the back of his leg, like eponymous, or Opus is back there, and it's like, God damn it. And like now he's got the Type O emblem on his hand. Like the dude is a walking billboard for heavy metal. And the carnivore influence you can definitely hear on Obedience Through Suffering, I think. I think you hear more of the speed. And the speed on a couple tracks on this record, you definitely get from the carnivore or some of the old New York hardcore he's listening to at the time. I don't necessarily hear some of the other influences, but I definitely hear like Type O immediately.
I mean, it's crazy, and we'll talk about, I guess, Phil a little bit more later as well, where like Phil was the person who got Kirk the demo before he says it, like the demo of Type O before they were even called Type O. So pretty crazy that, and of course that's like kind of essentially how you guys got into Crowbar yourself, is like Phil being this guy who is got his ear to underground music. But I think the carnivore influence or carnivore and Type O influence was like a lot more. Well, what the carnivore and Type O influence was a lot bigger in certain aspects of this record than I had realized, and we'll talk about that later. But with this record obviously being considered a glorified demo, they did mention that the first song that they wrote, Waiting in Silence, which is the opening track on Obedience Through Suffering, written in '89. Again, listening to a lot of Melvins, Carnivore, Trouble, Black Sabbath, and that was like kind of what, like when they're on their way to the rehearsal room, that's like what Kirk and Jimmy were essentially listening to. And so I guess like Jimmy Bauer was essentially like playing this just random beat at the practice space, and Kirk like wrote the riff. We love Jimmy Bauer. But he essentially started playing this beat and probably mouthing some random shit over it, and Kirk wrote that riff almost like instantly while they're like jamming in the space, and they'd kind of found their groove. They were like, oh, all right, I think we found like what we're trying to go for. Let's continue to like lean in that. And it's essentially kind of where we have this album. But I do want to run through the production really quick. Mark Nawara, who co-produced and co-mixed this album, he is also the owner of Grindcore International and also Pavement Music, which will
he owns the whole genre.
Yeah, Grindcore. Yeah, he bought it. Monopoly money. This is like he bought a.
Man, he spent the amount that people would spend on a McChicken in today's era. On the whole subgenre.
For the whole genre of grindcore.
Man, you're only going to give us $4. We have Napalm Death Scum. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, how did they get grindcore incorporated? How did they incorporate it as a business?
Everybody's got a price, to quote Ted DiBiase. Everybody's got a fucking price.
I do think it's interesting to interject.
We'll take out Seth Putnam if you said this to us.
I do think it's kind of interesting though. I just want to like make this point because I think it the drastic differences in that, like how these records were recorded, where they essentially drove up to Chicagoland, during the winter to an actual studio, uh, Studio 53 in Palatine, Illinois. That's again very crazy, but they were in a studio where you would essentially have probably access to more technology and people who are engineers and all this stuff, and they kind of describe it as this rush job, and they didn't know what they were doing with the band, and it ended up kind of failing the production of the record, and the sound wasn't quite there yet. But you have like the what would essentially how the the next record would be recorded, which is like miles different. It's like basically in someone's fucking garage. It's kind of interesting. Like even though you have all of these like tools essentially at the palm of your hand, like I don't know, just kind of doesn't quite click.
Sometimes it takes experiencing a poor production or a poor recording to make you really put things in perspective and go, we don't want to do that again. How can we handle doing this a little bit differently the next go around? It would be great to record at home. Hey, wait, we can save a little bit of money. We know this guy, he's played in one of the bands, Tungsten, I believe.
Yeah.
We've played shows with him. Why not see if he can do it and get the pre-pro done? Phil's in town off from a Pantera tour. Like, let's have him sit in, help out, and kind of give us some guidance there. And then, like, let's just send it out to be mixed and mastered.
They did have a music video for this record, though. I thought that was I always forgot that there is that song. What is it? Subversion. They have a single from that. But to Dylan's point, that bad production, you like it gets flubbed, and they basically like practiced so hard for months just months. They were playing like Monday through Friday, basically at like Kirk's parents' house. They would talk about, they're like, we didn't have any money, we didn't have any families, no kids, no nothing. We worked as little as possible.
To
They're
afford
going out
beer.
was Yeah, they were basically like, we would do what we could to get like 2 beers and like smoke a joint or something like that, and they would just play every night of the week. So that's like all they did, and apparently like Kirk's parents were just very supportive and allowed them to kind of like make noise at this house. But yeah, so they were kind of inspired by this first record, by this like experience that they had, and like what the product was, that they were like, all right, let's make a real record at this point. Let's like actually do what we intend to make this sound. And so the sophomore album, it's called Crowbar, and there's good reason for that. There's a quote from Kirk. It's basically, when we did the self-titled record, I said, let's just call it Crowbar. Metallica had just put out the Black Album with like no name and all that stuff. It just made sense. And the guy still said, but we already have an album. But in our reality, this was our first real album. There was no more transitioning. We found our sound and the direction we wanted to go with that album.
Everything on this record is what developed the sound. Like everything that's on this record, the band still like sounds like that. There's not, you could listen to the most recent album from 2022 and it still sounds like a lot of elements on this record, right? Yeah, production's different. Kirk's older, like riffs might be slightly different. There might be more of a classic rock influence to them, but it's all there. Like the nuts and bolts are all there.
It's good to know that they took influence from Metallica, and then Metallica took influence from Crowbar.
They took
later.
it. Oh, they took it, all right.
Right.
Oh, we don't know who that is at all.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing, about the sound too, I do want to mention, because we talked about Carnivore and Type O, very early Type O influencing like this sound. This record especially was influenced by a lot of East Coast hardcore.
Absolutely.
It kind of mentions like I was listening to a ton of Agnostic Front, Biohazard, Sick of It All, Cro-Mags, even Judge, but also a lot of Doom, kind of combining that. And so you definitely hear throughout this album, I mean, it's like so many fucking breakdown parts where you're just like, oh, someone's getting hurt. during the
So let's place it this. We'll talk about it a little bit as we get further into this. But Crowbar wasn't playing a lot of shows with hardcore bands at the time. They were playing a lot of shows with like death metal bands and doom metal bands. There wasn't anybody getting too murdered at those shows. I'm sorry. Like, there was a lot of people pushing people around. Like, I get that, but like, it wasn't like going to a hardcore show now where you got some dude out there doing fucking calisthenics getting ready for this shit.
They definitely have been on. I mean, I feel like I've certainly seen them on tours where there was a hardcore band on it or something like that. But yeah, that's fair. I mean, there's a couple tours like that we'll mention later where I'm like, probably a pretty slow crowd. The old straight face and arms crossed kind of crowd.
Oh no.
What are you saying?
Nothing.
What are you driving at?
They're having the time of their lives.
Same.
We should probably run through the lineup here a little bit. Kirk, of course, main songwriter of the band, always has been. They basically brought. He basically brought like most of the songwriting to the band. They were probably
it's Kirk's band.
Yeah,
always
Kirk's
has
band.
been. Yeah,
but we do have a new guitar player, Matt Thomas, who joined pretty much right before the recording of the album. And I say that, he showed up right before the recording, but does have like quite a bit of influence on this record and also future records, really. Matt was this guy who Dylan had put in the notes. He was an ex-member of this like kind of heavy metal like hair band called Razor White, Phil's band. And I don't think Phil was on any Razor White stuff, but that was like the band that he was in essentially before he joined Pantera. And basically Matt, I believe, was good friends with Kirk. That he knew all of the guys, so like it was a very easy transition joining the band and recording with them. The guy was a sound engineer both in the studio and live. Like he worked at a venue, and then playing in bands, specifically a cover band. And so like I think Kirk and Matt were both in cover bands, and then they'd basically like hang out at, I believe, Matt's house, and like they get a 12-pack of beer, and they had like a 4-track recorder. They'd play some stuff together, drink, have a good time, and like Kirk would stay the night there or something. So they got very friendly. They were good. They were close buddies. And so when time came to it where they needed another guitar player for the record, Kirk called Matt and was like, "Hey man, like I apparently was like even semi-retired from playing in bands. Do you want to do it?" And there wasn't, twist my arm, I'm going to play on this fucking record.
How many drunken recordings of Carry On My Wayward Son do you think were put on that fucking 4-track? Sitting around that 4-track, 3 o'clock in the morning, bong hits, whatever light beer was being consumed at that point in time. I mean, the terribly good covers that were probably on there is fucking wild. Like, hey man, let's do Ballroom Blitz one more time.
God.
Let's do
Get
My
off the
Sharona.
couch and get a goddamn job.
Oh, they're with the hat.
Oh God. Oh my God, he's bald.
No. Dylan, the hat took off all your hair.
Smooth operator. There.
I think the two biggest things that Matt brought to this group was, being, somewhat skilled in the audio engineering world. He like mentioned that coming to the band, he knew that like there wasn't a lot of knowledge on how to capture a band that tuned that low and that sound. So he had a lot of input as far as like how to record that music, and then also the guitar harmonies. Kirk mentioned in the latest Decibel, or one of the latest Decibel magazines, where they inducted this record, and when I should say we like have used a lot of information from that, so you should definitely go read it. But essentially, Kirk was far less of a technical player, and he said Matt went to study guitar at the university, knew like music theory, and so Kirk would have the riff. And then Matt would essentially come in and like have all of these guitar harmonies and like all of these like guitar parts that were layered over. And that like influence, I feel like it's certainly persisted throughout the rest of their career. I mean, the crowbar guitar harmony sound, that's just Crowbar. Like I hear it and I know exactly what it is. And that has certainly influenced here with Matt Thomas.
You don't get to carry the load. You don't get to build a mountain without those guitar harmonies. I mean, it's just second nature, right? Like you don't get Planets Collide without the guitar harmonies. It's all there. That's a crucial part of the Crowbar sound, that low tuning and the guitar harmonies. That baritone tuning that they're using, the B standard tuning, which was not being used by a lot of bands at the time. Carcass, Cathedral. That may be about it at this point in time. I mean, that's it. Like Kirk kind of helped usher in that, Type O, obviously, being the influence to that, but he helped create this low tuning thing when it came to hardcore bands or like sludge bands or doom bands. A lot of it goes to him.
Yeah. And, think of where that even comes from. I mean, these are all guys, as I mentioned, that played in cover bands. What were they playing? They were playing Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, all of those fifths and minor thirds and all of that stuff. It translates over into this new generation of, guitar players and heavy music. I want to say too, Matt also, I'm sure we'll talk about this at some point, but he also produced, engineered, and mixed Downs Nola, which we brought up earlier, 95. Of course, we have Todd Strange, bass.
Sexy T.
Which we kind of had a little bit of a dispute because there's some kind of differing accounts. I don't know actually how much of Todd is on this record, because in the interview for the latest Decibel, inducting this album, he kind of talks about going to record, and there's another Decibel Hall of Fame article on the Down record where Kirk kind of mentions that during this process, he kind of just hands Todd the bass, or Todd hands Kirk the bass and says, "Hey, you should probably just do this."
So the story seems to be that maybe Todd had some nerve issues or something like that when it came to recording. Sometimes when the red light comes on, the anxiety will kind of come in. We don't know if this is true or not, but the statement made by Kirk in that initial NOLA Hall of Fame interview is that Kirk recorded the bass on every Crowbar record post Obedience Through Suffering that Todd was on. Is that true? We don't really know. I'm sure it lies somewhere in between there. But from what I gathered, Kirk at least recorded all the bass on the NOLA album as well as this record. But we don't really know. So it's very likely that it's probably 50-50 in there.
Yeah.
I think it was Geddy Lee. I think it was just a different person entirely.
Just for that existence as punishment bit. It's all Geddy.
Geddy Lee rules, bro.
Not enough odd meters.
We also have Craig Nunemaker.
That's why Dad names you Joe Dirt instead of Nunemaker.
He's so proud of himself. Craig, of course, on the
another New Orleans tie-in.
Oh yeah, was that movie?
Yes,
that movie
it took place in Louisiana. Yep.
Cody
I'm
Thompson.
good. No, you ain't.
No, you ain't.
Fuck. Robert Ritchie. Fuck Kid Rock. Dude is a piece of shit. God damn it. I want all the bad things in the world to happen to that man.
Nobody
else. I gotta go home and put water in Buck Nasty's mama's dish. Hate.
So we've been talking about the production a little bit here. He got through the lineup.
Also,
album,
before we go into the production side, what fucking tracks is Phil on?
I think there's a few where there's some
spoken word stuff that I can hear.
I think it's layered very low in the mix.
Okay.
I think that's him. If I had to guess, and I don't know for sure. I don't know anything.
Like I couldn't really come up with it because the motherfuckers both speak and drop B anyway. So it's like it could be either or.
Right. I thought it was
honestly.
the very low spoken word parts in the music. But yeah, Phil Anselmo Pantera does some guest appearance vocals apparently on this record. He also produced the record, and by that more so, if anything, he's kind of described as the director of the album and like how some of it's arranged.
Self-inflicted, there's like spoken part under like Kirk's speaking, but there's like spoken vocals there.
Yeah, I think there's
Yep,
definitely
that.
that one, and then maybe another one that I thought
Later.
could be it. But
Yeah.
yeah, Phil, guest appearance on the record. He produced the record. He's kind of described as this director of the album. Obviously they've been friends. They knew each other for a long time. And by director, it means like he's just kind of, he's not like telling you specifically to do this or that, but he's providing guidance. Like, I mean, shit, the riff to Existence is Punishment essentially came out of Phil. Like that song had like 4 or 5 other riffs between. There's the main one, which Phil pointed out as being like, that's the money riff. Like that is the riff that you should use. The rest of it, dog shit. Like figure it out.
There's something about growing up in the South when you ask your buddies like, "Hey man, can you be honest with this?"
Yeah.
And the guy and your buddy goes, "You really want me to be honest?" It's like, yes, that's a very Southern trope.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I want you to be honest. I don't want you to sugarcoat it. And the whole line of like, the song ain't that great, but that riff,
Yeah.
that fucking riff, and then it's like, Existence is Punishment is now 2 parts.
Right. We'll get into for sure. I definitely think you don't need a lot to make a good song for sure.
Yeah, with this band in particular, like, yes, 100%. Kurt can write a song around 1 part.
Yep. And that is exactly it. Finding through like being friends with Phil and like, kind of learning through Phil, he kind of realized, and he talks about this in the NOLA doc as well, where it's like you can write a song around that one riff. As long as you have that one riff, you can write an entire song and transition out of it and kind of make variations on it. And that is essentially like a lot of what this record is just having that main, like that earworm, that fucking riff, and then kind of playing off of that.
There should be a show that talks about this.
Damn, $1 million idea. It's not.
Not yet.
It's not.
It ain't been $1 million yet.
Ain't even a million pennies. What are we talking about?
So my favorite part about this recording process is that the album cites HT Recording Studios in Calmet, Louisiana. I hope I pronounced that right. If not, fuck off. I don't care. But you think it's like an actual recording studio. It is just some dude's house. Essentially, it is the drummer of a band called Tungsten, which I believe Kirk is actually wearing a Tungsten t-shirt in the All I Had I Gave music video.
I always thought it was an Everlast t-shirt.
Amazing.
Motherfuckers needing an endorsement at that time.
So
Just
they knocked
Everlast.
on Crowbars and stuff.
Oh no, I'm talking. That's Everclear.
Are you talking about Everlast?
The boxing brand. Yeah.
Oh,
Like the exercise,
okay.
not the rapper. No.
okay, that's what I thought you were talking
the
about.
House of
No,
Pain
that's
rapper.
even better. I'm talking about because Kirk was like a gym guy at one point, so it's like he is now too. But it's like, yeah, I was like, oh yeah, he's wearing like that. I mean, that's got to be where Swindle got it, like the cloth shorts thing, because Kirk was wearing cloth shorts before they were trad.
I had at one point I was wearing a St. Vitus hat backwards and some cloth shorts for a long little while. Wasn't doing myself any favors probably, but
Hey man, but those balls were cool.
man, breeze. It was breezing. That Bowling Green, Kentucky breeze.
They've been sweating every day since.
Ever since.
Got to watch out for those white squirrels.
That's right.
They'll go for them.
So
Anyway.
I mean, they were really ahead of their time with this because, most people, they record a lot at home. You can make some quality shit at home, but they took an 8-track recorder, and they even said, like, maybe they even doubled it up. Like, I think Matt mentioned it was like a very, like, primitive, like, bare
very
bones kind of
archaic.
budget. Yeah, so they took one 8-track, another 8-track, and kind of like I don't know how that works, but they basically put them together.
They essentially daisy chained them so they could have a couple more tracks or anything like layer guitars, quad track, whatever it is.
And I think it went from this dude's house, like in the house, they like cabled it, and it like all of this could only have been possible if this guy's mother wasn't home. Also, apparently,
Amazing.
he's like while the drummer's mom was gone, they basically came over to record during the morning, maybe when she was off at work, and they had the 8-track recorders in the house cabled through into the garage and maybe like a shed for vocals.
I'm just imagining, like, I know Kirk is like in his late 20s or early 30s at this point, but I'm just imagining this is like an unruly group of neighborhood kids like sneaking into one of their friends' house.
Oh,
but it's like
little rascals.
big,
It's Stand By Me.
28-year-old bald guys with fucking 30 racks of Coors Light. Just
So,
sneaking in.
it's funny. Great story. Kind of segue. Lauren had a former coworker that saw her at, or my girlfriend had a former coworker that saw her at her place of business, and he was like, "Hey, I saw your boyfriend at the Sumac show," and the guy's like, "A lot of big, burly, bald dudes with beards there," and Lauren, without missing a beat, goes, "You need to go to a Crowbar show." I was like,
isn't that great when you can dispel like your bullshit on someone else and they understand the context and references of it?
before we hopped on, I said, "All right, I got to show you the Beavis and Butt-Head clips." And as soon as she heard the like, "Get down and give me 20 push-ups," she's like, "Okay, all right."
So, saved a lot of money on recording, it seems. Recording with the local band, they knew some dude's house, mom gone. They did fly out to LA, however. I think it's Jim Faraci did the mixing of this record. They mixed at the Rocket Plant in Burbank, California. And there's a quote from Matt that said, "Kirk and I flew out to Hollywood to mix the record at a place owned by Ricky Rocket, the drummer of Poison."
Oh my God.
There's that connection, I guess. And then also you have Steve Hall mastering the record at Future Disc Systems. I think we've talked about Steve at some point before because I remember that. He also worked on Alice in Chains' Dirt and
Hell yeah.
Wasp, The Last
God damn
Command,
it.
which forever ruined Swindle's algorithm on his YouTube.
That fucking video. Anytime you're around, I know that video is getting played. That's usually your first go-to.
Oh, I mean, it's probably going to happen after this.
If it's not, it's Johnny Knoxville and everybody at the golf course. Is Butterbean okay?
My dad still does that. We still do that shit to this day with the golf course thing.
But I can't wait for the Riff Worship episode with fucking Moss.
Oh yeah, can't wait for that.
We doing it yet?
Yeah.
Are we doing it? Is this it? Is this the one? I'm sorry. I'm black.
We've
I'm
actually
like-
been leading up to the Wasp episode the whole time.
This was a whole lie. This was a lie. So we breezed by the history of this band.
That's right.
Should we get into the songs on the record?
The Butts and Nolts.
High Rate Extinction.
This record starts.
It does.
It just
goes.
Unlike this episode, this record really gets into it quick.
Yes. I love
Listen,
the quote.
I'm gonna wine and dine you. We're gonna have a nice night out. We're gonna go to dinner. You're gonna deal with me talking about my stomach the entire night, and then we're gonna have a nice date. This is what this episode is.
For once, he's gonna tell you about this stuff. Kirk says, "I wrote that in about 5 minutes on my couch, the song, the riff. I remember we had some scratch vocals, a demo or something, and Phil came up with the idea of the vocal phrasing and the pattern panning left and right. We do an entire verse and a chorus before the vocals came in." He said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" He's like, "Trust me." Which, it's pretty cool.
It opens up with like, I always think of those riffs like that as like a walking across people's head riff. Like people just like going, yeah, like it's the Dillinger escape plan thing at the Virgin Megastore, just walking all over people's heads and everything. Like it's that type of riff.
I hope no one at a Crowbar show was walking on top of anybody's fucking head.
It's not like they fuck up anybody's hair.
No, they fuck up their skull.
God forbid everyone's got a chrome dome like me. At that point, you're sliding everywhere. Just banana peel sounds.
Up all the baldies
right?
before.
Yeah, especially if they buffed it. Beforehand.
In addition to panning the vocals, they also panned like the fucking
yes,
the drum fills in the verses. I thought that was really cool.
I mean, this is by the book Crowbar riff. Like this is just blueprint Crowbar right out the gate. And the fact that you found your sound on your second record, you've essentially created the foundation of your band's sound on your second record, right? I mean, the band could easily at this point go like, yeah, this is Crowbar. Like this is what we sound like. Again, the panning left and right vocals is great. They're dry. There's no reverb, no delay, nothing. They're dry. And it is probably Kirk at his... He definitely hasn't gotten to the point that he's seasoned at that point. Like he's still very much trying to find his voice on this record in particular. He's more confident than he was on the first record. It's not Oddfellows Rest Kirk by any means. Like he's not crooning yet, but he's getting there.
Which I remember them kind of talking about. I think, wasn't it like they would do a like car ride with Phil? There was something where they would basically sit and chill together, and they'd kind of like, he helped a lot lyrically, and kind of influencing that.
Yeah, the story is it's really mapped out in that Decibel article, but basically Kirk would sit in the back in the Oldsmobile Cutlass that Todd had at the time when they'd go to pick up Phil before they went to the studio, and Kirk would be kind of like frantically going, I don't have any lyrics. What happened?
I was drinking that beer in the weirdest way possible.
What'd I do?
You had your arm like this when you fucking drink it.
See, now it's forceful, so it's not going to be as good.
Yeah.
When people aren't genuine, we can call bullshit. Take that, punk rock MBA. But anyway,
he has not heard of us.
No, fuck him. Yeah. But anyway, they're sitting in the back of like Todd's Oldsmobile Cutlass, and Kirk is kind of nervously saying, I don't have any lyrics, and Phil, without like any guidance or anything, is like, dude, I write most of my stuff last minute, like it's off the cuff. I might come up with like a song title here or there, and it kind of helped Kirk understand that. And then years later, I've listened to Kirk interviews where he's like, yeah, I wait till I'm in the studio getting ready to record vocals. I have a couple Coors Lights. I go in. I record the vocals. And then like to think about that, and you get something like Planets Collide or, To Build a Mountain or Dead Sun.
Oh, man.
Like I could 100% see him getting a little bit toasted and going and recording Cemetery Angels, because there's no way you're recording that breakdown call out without that being like off the cuff. Bring it down.
Why is it so high pitched?
Because it needs to be.
But
both of our impressions were very high pitched.
Yeah. Complete opposite of the spectrum. No, it's cool to like actually see that. I mean, without Phil, in a lot of ways, like you don't get the sound, you don't get the kind of teachings and arrangement and songwriting, and then also just lyrically, it's like that affirmation of like, what are you talking about? I do it like basically right before we go in.
We've had this conversation a lot. Without him being in Pantera, and without Pantera being the band that it was, you don't get you don't get all these New Orleans bands reaching the people that they reached. I Hate God, Down, Crowbar, Soylent Green. I mean, Pantera did shows with Soylent Green. Like, yeah, like, I mean, you don't get that, and his influence is there. Like, he wanted to help his buddies out. And that's essentially what he did. He helped his buddies out. He helped them get out there, record labels, et cetera, et cetera. And I know Kirk is very thanking of him, and I mean, it's one of Kirk's best friends. Like, he's very thanking of him on this record. He said, this album wouldn't sound like this album without him. Like, Phil helped out with a couple song titles, would change lyrics up here or there to help Kirk out, and it would make the song better. And in Kirk's take on it. And, you know, it for all the kind of checkered past that Phil's got, like, you're not going to get the NOLA sound kind of without his influence there with that. And, like, I don't want to necessarily give a lot of credo there, but it is what it is. You know, I think we're all kind of, we've had this conversation. We'll leave it there. There's a lot of, there's a lot of inner conflict there.
Phil definitely has some good opinions and some bad opinions.
The
wild thing to me is, this is really before Pantera even hit their stride. Though.
Yes, correct. This is before Far Beyond Driven.
In 93. So, like, definitely Cowboys from Hell had come out. Had Vulgar come out by 93?
Vulgar was out in 92.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was in between Vulgar and Far Beyond Driven.
Which we'll get into. They ultimately, Crowbar did do the U.S. run of dates, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
High Rate Extinction.
About this fucking song.
High Rate Extinction. Great fucking track.
It's a great song. The opening riff. Super, there's really only like... There's repetition. It's primal. There's like 2 to 3 parts in this whole fucking song. And like the first part is like, okay, this is Caveman. This is just Fred Flintstone. But the second part is like
an erection.
Fred Flintstone with a groove is essentially the thing. Like the vocals are great. We've kind of mentioned that a little bit. When I first heard it, you get that like try to like sing along to it in your car. You get like you can feel it in your throat, in your chest. It is coming from deep down, like in that diaphragm. The layered and pan vocals. Definitely wear some headphones when you listen to this record as well. But I will say, even with those like very gruff vocals throughout the song, the bridge vocals are the most musical for this part of the song. Like the song is
the vocal layering in the bridge is the first inkling of what you kind of get with what's to be, right?
Yeah.
That's where you start to go, okay, there's a little bit more here than just, hardcore and kind of beat down stuff. The bendy kind of chorus riff is perfect. I mean, this is one of those bands where you can go like, there's an actual chorus part. It just happens to be another riff, right? The drums are tight and fucking punchy all over this record. And Swindle and I were kind of talking off air, like, it kind of sounds like they're processed a little bit, but I don't think they are. They're so tight and punchy. They're very Del Crover-esque, like snappy. There's a pop to them. The snare sounds crazy triggered, as Swindle was bringing up. Like, it's specifically on the rolls that you hear a lot. There's the lyrics all over this record are about self-doubt and self-problems and everything like that. I mean, weak man, weak mind is kind of the vocal line on here.
I will say this song, though, seems weirdly alpha, I guess. Yeah. There's like a weird flipped thing. Not that
Give me what I need from you. Don't question why.
Yeah. This is like a weird turn of the tables, I guess. On like song.
I always go back to this really bad, like John Moxley promo towards CM Punk, telling him he had a weak mind, weak body.
Kind of surprised it took this long to get into.
It's there, Pepsi Phil. And I heard that and I was like, oh, okay. I was like, it's funny because like Moxley looks like he'd be in Crowbar.
That's true.
Yeah.
There's a big old metal pause in High Rate Extinction, and I fucking love that metal pause.
Love the pauses on this record. Lots of pauses that just hit.
Right.
Yep.
Ooh.
All I had, I gave.
The Motorhead track.
This record could have started with this song or High Rate Extinction.
Yeah.
Honestly, because they both just really get right into it for sure. This is one of the hits. The catch.
Yep.
The catch.
The Paul
I love
Mazurkiewicz
that
thing.
Yeah. Signature opening riff.
Yep. That bending thing, that's NOLA. Like that is New Orleans. That's the the meters. That's all of that shit.
The fucking verse is very hardcore.
Yeah.
Fucking hardcore punk verse.
It definitely comes through on this track. Anytime I listen to this, I always think of the music video. Just Kirk looking up or wherever he's looking, just staring, not blinking, just staring very intensely into the fucking. Oh,
I've got a roommate with 4 legs that does the same thing. It's just like I see you.
I heard he's got balls that throw sparks in the air when they drag across the ground.
Dude, he'll drop the fucking shoulder and go after you.
I've seen that happen.
It's like watching Will the Refrigerator Perry go after a fucking parakeet.
Fucking slow breakdown, and love when the drummer plays the fucking offbeats on the hi-hat and the breakdown.
I think the biggest thing about Craig is that
what's his last name?
Nunemaker.
Thank you.
Nunenbacher.
Studenbaker.
Orville Nunenbacher.
Yeah. Craig is a very it would be very hard to be as reserved as Craig is. Like I feel like he holds the foundation. He's there, but his choices are very unique. It's not boring. He holds the foundation, but he's doing a lot of very unique fills and like
very creative. He is a very creative fucking drummer.
There's an excitement to his playing, right? Because like you look at him and then you look at like Jimmy Bower, right? And Jimmy Bower's almost falling off the fucking stool, like lazy, kind of like back of the beat drummer, like great drummer, fun to listen to. Bill Ward influenced to a T, right? Whereas like Craig seems like he's on top of the beat, almost much more like almost like a funk drummer or like a punk drummer, just like.
I was gonna say, it's almost like a jazz drummer playing metal.
Right.
Again, that's that kind of Louisiana thing, though, right? It's kind of that weird blending of like Zydeco music and everything.
Wild drums all throughout this album.
Absolutely. Like as soon as like I really paid attention to the drum performance on this record, and I heard Craig, I went, dude, that's Del Crover. Like all over it, the snapping, like you can almost hear the shoulders just going into it, like just really kicking in. He's not playing from the knee when he hits his kick. He's playing from like his glute. Like he's hitting it hard, and it's a really snappy drum sound. And he's it's a really great drum performance. I was going to make some sort of comment about like, no wonder he's so svelte. Like, as opposed to everybody else in the band, because like he's just back there, just like noodle arming it.
He went on to play for Zach, right?
Black Label Society.
Yes, he played on the Mafia record. He played on Blessed Hell Ride. He played on Hangover Music. Like all the classic records he played on.
Those are the ones that I fucking grew up listening to.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't tell you how many times Austin and I have gotten tanked and listened to Hangover music.
It was I listened to I still do it.
At his house I do.
Tomorrow, yesterday, I forget the name of that fucking song. It's a piano song on that record.
I always go back to the Stillborn video.
Yeah.
I mean,
Stillborn. Anyway, we're talking about Crowbar.
Okay, two things. Two other things on this. I feel like this album, the bass gets buried quite a
I'm
bit.
hurt.
Um,
See, I actually think the bass cuts through pretty well.
in part, like in
Yeah.
very, you
I
can
think in
hear
this
the,
song it comes through.
Yeah.
it does. So I was gonna,
That drum and bass breakdown in the
There's
middle
the-
before it gets
it-
to the breakdown.
it when it gets singled out, you can certainly hear it. And then in other parts, it's like you can hear.
For me.
It's like the clank of it. I like almost
Yeah.
feel like I don't know if it's
Right,
like growl.
right.
Like you can hear that
Yes.
part of it. It's a very odd tone, and maybe Dylan can speak more to that. I don't know, but it's not like necessarily like some of the low end gets cut out. I feel like with the guitar, but hey, Doctor Bass, do the
So
Medicine
the
woman.
the theory behind this is every instrument has to hit a certain frequency when you record, right? Guitars are typically a mid-range instrument. When you tune everything down as low as Crowbar has, which is B, which is very sub-baritone level. And when you do that, the guitars, especially the type of instruments that Kirk was using at the time, lower frequencies, bigger bass in frequency on that, right? These guys are tuning low. They're using kind of lower frequency signals, everything like that. The bass has to hit or kind of meet a certain frequency range. So think of it this way. In Megadeth, the guitars are very mid-range heavy. So the bass had a lot of top end click and a lot of low end, right? There was no mid-range in the bass at all. It was very scooped. Whereas in this band, the guitars are so low end heavy, you have to find something that clicks through and pokes through to make it audible. I always kind of attribute the bass tone on this record like I would like a Integrity record or something, where it's very clicky, very top endy, and it cuts through at certain points. Whereas like when they're hitting those really low notes, it's going to fill it up even more so. So it's just, yes, it's not a traditional bass sound. It's very top indie and very clicky in there. But it's played with the pick, so it cuts through a little bit more. And it fits with, it's a very weird sound to play on a record like this, though, I will say. Like, because you look at like Oddfellows Rest, it's got more distortion on it. It's warmer sounding. And those, I mean, when you're talking about this band and classic records, it's those two records. So like having these two different sounding albums is so fun as well. But like, yes, that's basic caveman explanation as to why the bass probably sounds the way it does.
Will That Never Dies.
Great intro.
It's got the opening riff is incredible. Super unique rhythm. Like it almost like when you hear it for the first time, as a guy who was very not like I wasn't like accustomed to this music, it was like where's it going? Like it's kind of like an off kilter rhythm a bit, and then it transitions into this like dirgy groove riff that follows.
How can you be so sad with such good fucking riffs?
Man, yeah, this riff, this song has like
Got a I Hate God riff in it.
yeah. There's like the it's like the mix of southern rock and hardcore. And I think Kirk even kind of talks about it in the article for the Decibel Hall of Fame, where it's like using a little bit of the wrong note. I mean, wrong note. You get that little bit of that like create some
Half
tension,
note.
right? Yeah.
Yep. You get the dissonance there. Not even dissonance. You get the kind of flatted fifth that's used a lot, or like use the blues scale a little bit. You get that kind of like weird minor tonality. Great track, great riffs. Kirk's vocals are to me kind of the definition of like a man's pain. Like it's just 100%. There's no question. The dude, Jamie Josta does a lot of this band's merch, and you know, bless Jamie, like he's a good dude. Does a lot of Crowbar's merch and has kind of helped Crowbar step into like modern world. But he has a shirt that says "Kirk is our Lemmy," and I always thought that was pretty cool. I was like, yeah, 100%. Like it's Lemmy had a lot of lyrics that made sense to a lot of people at the time. And I think Kirk's makes a lot of sense to a lot of millennial people, like millennial men like us, where it's like, life ain't always like roses and rainbows, man. It's there's a lot of shattered dreams at the end of that rainbow.
What's the
Just
the
like
quote?
gold dust.
Fuck you, Swindle. You gotta live a little bit to understand.
Oh yeah,
Crowbar.
you got to experience some pain before you can understand Crowbar, right? Yeah,
Right.
and like one thing I want to bring up in this song, and it's on every song of this album, is Kirk knows how to write songs. Like he knows, motherfucker studied music. Like he grew up, I may not care for them, but he grew up listening to like the Beatles. He had older sisters. He's a little bit older. Like he understands songwriting, so it makes complete sense. Like he knows how to write a song. And this is evident of it.
He talks about it in the thing we kind of mentioned it earlier, where like you have these like the dichotomy of like a guy who studied music theory that adds like the harmony level
Yeah.
to the band, and then you have a guy who maybe doesn't understand that necessarily, but he understands what it's the ear, right? It's all in the ear, and
It's all in the hips.
yeah,
It's
grew
all
up
in the
listening
hips.
to classic rock radio. Like, we'll get into that in a little while, but like you were just on those songs, like just simple, straightforward, kind of pop structured songs.
Yeah.
A lot of these songs are maybe a couple parts. They're very straightforward, and that's like kind of what I was talking about before, where it's like you don't really need a lot. You know, it doesn't need to be complex to be good songwriting.
I agree to that. I do 100% agree. You can take one riff and write the whole song around it. You know, I do think some bands can't though. I think some bands are better suited to have more than like one or two riffs, right? Like look at when some bands that wrote more complicated tracks got simple, right? When we did our countdown episode, great record, like tremendous fucking album. But the minute they stepped away from that, it got a little bit more convoluted, right? You look at Metallica, like arguably, once they hit the Black Album, they went further than that. It got a little like, it didn't quite work. But then you look at a band like Alice in Chains that wrote like Check My Brain later on in their career. That song is based around that one riff. Or Stone, it's based around one riff. Perfect songs. But then you look at like Metallica's, you look at like Fuel, right? Later kind of 90s hit. It's like it's based around one riff, but it doesn't quite hit the mark for me. But then you got bands like Crowbar that can go, hey, we have one riff. I can write everything around that one riff and it's still going to be a good song. It's like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And some bands do it extremely well. And some bands just don't quite hit them. It feels forced. Like some bands should be like, yeah, we're going to have 6 riffs in one song. And this is just what the song's going to be. Whereas like Crowbar is like, I couldn't imagine writing 6 riffs for one song.
The chorus riff for this song, it feels like Kirk just wrote a riff that he could play with one hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess right. That's good. That's good. I like that.
It feels like a one-handed riff. Right.
Maybe one of my favorite songs on the record, Fixation. Unreal riff, but also like
Starts with bass and drums.
the bass and drum intro. It's audible, and like there's musical feedback as well. That New Orleans thing, I guess. Burning hunger to rid you from my mind. A fucking
Again,
unreal line.
Classic fucking Crowbar. Like when the vocals and the riff kicks in, like those a crowbar like staple is the bent note vibrato kind of thing. Nobody's got vibrato like Crowbar. Like just how he bends a note. It's the low tuned strings. It's the whatever it is. Like amazing. Combining riffs like that with like mosh riffs coming in at a minute and a half in. Like, I mean, this song's got 2 riffs.
This was the first song that I noticed the like snare roll on this album sounding very triggered or electronic.
It does sound digital. That's immediately what crossed through my brain was like, it's digital. And that could just be attributed to Craig, like just being really good and on top of his shit. Absolutely. Like I even put it in my notes, like the drum and cymbal work at like 2 minutes and 20 odd seconds
and
is
the really slow part at the breakdown or whatever.
It's so fucking cool.
I love that shit.
That is so fucking cool. I mean, it's some of these hardcore bands could be champing at the bit to write tracks like this.
Absolutely.
Like I think Crowbar played This Is Hardcore one time. I think they played it like 2014 or so. So like not quite during the period where Crowbar was as appreciated as it is now. Like if they played it now, world's falling apart.
Yeah.
Like you got Colin and Bo like curating like an edition of This Is Hardcore. It's over.
I love the verse riff and the vocals. They kind of mirror each other somewhat. You know, it's like almost like the verse riff holds the foundation so the vocal melody can carry it. And then you have like except for those bends. The bends like definitely stick out. But the fucking chorus riff is just full of chugs.
Yeah.
Like the great thing about the tone of this record too is you feel every chug, you feel every palm mute on this thing. And I don't know if Dylan knows. I know he's a Randall guy later on. Maybe he's a Jackson guy at this point. I don't know what he was using amp wise.
Kirk played an old Charvel for a lot of years. It was an old Charvel, essentially Jackson at this point. Played an old Charvel at that point. Probably was a Randall amp at this point. Like he picked up the whole Randall thing from Dimebag, those RG100s, I believe is what they're called. And he still uses them. Like he used Orange for a while and a couple other amps like Marshall with like Down, but he loves those RG, and that's kind of that's the NOLA sound. Sammy uses like a variation of those Randall amps as well.
I did always think Dimebag was a tone guy, you know?
People want to talk about Dimebag's tone. No one else could make it sound good. Literally nobody else could make it sound good. That is the most scooped guitar tone I've ever heard.
Yeah.
He's the one guy that could make that shit sound good. And it's the same thing, like, you look at the comparisons of like Dimebag and Eddie Van Halen, like it's there, right? Like it's direct influence. Eddie didn't use any pedals. He plugged straight into whatever amp he created, and it sounded like him. And it's like an amp, that amp was just made for him. And tons of guys use those 5150 variations. Like I've got one and I love it. I don't sound like fucking Eddie Van Halen. I sound like a dude that grew up listening to this shit, like playing through a 5150. And it's remarkable that different guitar tones for different people. And Kirk's guitar tone is that like Randall RG solid state 100 amp, because that's what it was. The Dimebag amp is a solid state amp. And and he fucking boosted it with a metal zone. Kirk boosted it with one of the worst boss pedals of all time. Boosted it with a metal zone. And like, I've seen some Down interviews where like he, Jimmy, and Pepper will all like talk shit on each other's tones. And they're like, your tone sucks. Your tone sucks. Your tone sucks. And they all three got awesome tone. All three of them. But like Kirk's guitar tone is something to behold. It needs to be fucking studied of like, you can use $300 amps to like create this ungodly sounding tone.
Yeah. That fucking slow part when they're like transitioning at the end to go back to the faster part, there's like 3 bass chords to go into that faster part. And I was just like, I'd never noticed those bass chords before until listening for this episode. And I was just like, this is insane. This is
how do you make it thicker?
Right.
A 5-string bass playing power chords.
Take Crowbar, but make it heavier. Like, how do you do that?
Like, you got a beat up riff at the end of this song.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. It sounds like Hit Someone is like how I made it in my notes. Like
if this band had a China this early on in its career, it's fucking over.
Halfway point of the record. I think it splits up the record very nicely. No quarter. The Led Zeppelin cover of this record. I think Crowbar did it better. I think we can all agree on that.
Yep.
Yes.
But I would be lying if I say I didn't like grow up on those records and didn't listen to those records. Swindle, I think you probably did as well. Um, and we have to also recognize that Kirk grew up on a lot of this music, and
He did.
uh, the really the funny thing, and on another like carnivore type O Pete Steele kind of influence here, which I did not know. I always wondered why this was the choice for the record, but he apparently had a VHS tape of Carnivore at Lemoore in Brooklyn, which I also knew through the Get Thrashed documentary. They talked about being like all the big place to go to thrash shows, like matinee shows even, and it was from like 87, 88. It had been like taped, like they fucking, tape trading and all this shit. This had been recorded over like a million times. Um, and apparently Pete started playing the chorus riff from No Quarter in the like just in between songs. Like, and he was like, a lot of this, a lot of Crowbar's career is like, we kind of ripped off Carnivore. We kind of ripped off Pete Steele. I hope they don't sue us or something like
Yeah.
that. Like, I hope they don't like call us out for kind of ripping them off a little bit. And this song, he kind of saw as an opening to be like, we can cover that song. They didn't play the full thing. We can do this whole thing. And even later, they talk about where I think it's Louis Bato is the drummer from Carnivore. They apparently were like friends on social media later on. He comes out to a show with his wife and sees them cover No Quarter. And Louis says, like, he kind of runs up to the band after the show and is like, I always wanted Pete to do this, but he hated Led Zeppelin, so he would never do the full
Yes!
song.
Yes.
He hated Led Zeppelin, so he would never do
Yes.
it. But I truly think that I listened to this album, I listened to the Zeppelin record a lot growing up, and I don't think I maybe understood how the emotional weight of it. Like I kind of listened to it, I thought it was a good song, but not until I heard this song, there's just so much more of a like an anguish and an emotional like thing to it.
Isn't a thing in the original song that there's like a weird like underwater effect on either the vocals or the guitars?
The vocals.
Which the vocals for sure. They have used a few times in a couple records. So it's kind of laid back, and I haven't listened to it in quite some time, but when I listened to this record, there's the line in particular where it's kind of like, uh, again, theory. I don't know which the 1/4 whatever 5 chord or whatever it is. When Kirk says, there's the line that they carry news that must get through. When it's like that chord, I just feel it. I feel all of it.
I had to listen to the track in preparation to the record. I had to listen to the original. And I went, oh, in my notes, I said, I'm glad Kirk has made this track listenable. Because I despise this band. I despise
Same.
Led Zeppelin to no end. I realized that Crowbar did a better version of this song just based off that alone.
First of all, I think this album is the perfect length for this album, which is very rare for me to say about any album. Usually I want every album to be shorter, no matter how long it is. I also do like this cover, but I do think that this song is like a lull in the album.
The weakest of the bunch.
I disagree. Disagree with you wholeheartedly.
I agree with Swindle. I do agree with Swindle on this one, 100%. But I also think that Pantera's version of Planet Caravan is really fucking cool. So I understand where bands are like, we want to cover a song we think is cool. Let's do it. Crowbars, though, sounds like Crowbar. Whereas Pantera sounds like Pantera covering Black Sabbath, right? Nothing wrong with either variations of that. But I always go back to that and I'm like, it's not my choice. They're going to do a song that's really cool to them. Although I would fucking love to hear that Aqualung cover.
Oh yeah, when they were sluts.
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
God.
When I heard
That
of
would be
I was like,
fun.
that's very funny that happened.
I do think it's a very interesting decision to throw this cover in the dead middle of this album.
I personally think that is a great choice. I think this breaks up the album very nicely.
Ends the A side.
And then you go right back into the fucking heat with, self-inflicted. I think it breaks it up. You kind of get that transition. Yeah, flip the record over, self-inflicted. Now we're back into like just gauntlet shit.
This is one of the songs that has the speaking vocals during layered under Kirk's singing.
I did also want to bring this up earlier. All I gave. Also, I feel like if you're listening to it on headphones, also has a very, very, like in the left ear, buried. So I think maybe Phil's on that track, and I think Phil is on this track. If I were to assume, and I'm a gambling man.
I know that.
I'm a rambling man as well. Trying to make a living.
He did the
do
thing.
the best I can.
You're always betting the house. You, Austin,
Yes.
you're always betting the house.
He's looking at you.
Cup of coffee. Duncan.
Looking at you, kid.
It goes right. It kind of like the record starts. It's like
That
you get
fucking
right into
hi-hat
the
count is so like, yes. Into just a thrashy fucking intro. The layered vocals, like
there's riffs all over this thing though. I mean, the chorus riff,
fucking 3 minutes.
The chorus riff,
3 minute song.
East Coast hardcore is the chorus.
The chorus riff might be one of my favorite. And they even like do a variation where it's like kind of 2-step as well. Like, yeah, it's.
Digging back at the boot, back to big, back.
The back half of the song sounds like a completely different song, though.
Oh,
how about the breakdown?
Slow, deep, and hard part?
The breakdown is so funny, where it's like, we need a breakdown here. We're gonna cut so abruptly into it, like they don't transition to it really. They're just like, stop, breakdown part. Love that part about them.
It's this fucking track is a lot of fucking fun. It's the start of the B side of the record.
Yeah.
The chorus riff is amazing. It's East Coast hardcore. It sounds like Cro-Mags, Agnostic Front, Sick of It all of that fun shit. I mean, the riff at 1 minute and 15 seconds in is like stage dives, just like Terror would be excited for that shit. Like the drums are killer in that section as well. Like the drums on this whole fucking record are just Craig, fantastic drummer. Wasted his talents in BLS. It's a different story. The kick drum break to the end of that slow, deep, and hard kind of typo part at the end is fucking amazing. Just the fact that, like, yes, it's like, here's this fast song, and then wham. It's like you got behind the slow mover at the fucking grocery store.
George Michael Wham.
Right, yeah.
Right. Christmas, googa badu, ashuba da dee da baduga babu.
Negative Pollution. Love Craig's tom parts during the intro of the song. It opens kind of again where, knowing a bit of the context of this record now, where it's like the money riff. I feel like this opening part was the money riff, and then they built around it, and the song is half, again, New York hardcore and maybe doom Black Sabbath-y shit.
The way the drums intro with the toms and all of that, and then he simplifies it to emphasize the weight of the riff coming in is so fucking cool. It kind of feels like Self-Inflicted Part 2. Like it almost was like that could have been one long track with both of these playing through. There's a lot of tie-ins with this track. Again, the ending, as you said, that kind of Sabbath-y doom part, that's slow, deep, and hard. That's like Repulsion. That's that Pete Steele kind of influence to it. This is the only track on the record I think that has triplets on it. I kind of noticed that, like, there's not a lot of that, like that feel to it, that kind of like Raining Blood kind of feel. But this is the only one with it. It's the only track with like legitimate triplets going on with like guitar wise or anything.
The verse riff's fun. It's like almost as if It holds the foundation in the first half, and then it go in the second half of it, it like goes fucking ape shit. And then when and it's like that's like the New York hardcore riff to me. When it goes into the breakdown, a lot of the breakdowns on this record are very hardcore-esque.
100%.
This one is just slow. It's doomy. They just
so fucking slow.
right. Again, for Craig,
So fucking slow.
It's like
Craig-
it's at 4 BPMs.
for Craig to be as reserved as he is, like it's just incredible. Like
He needed a fucking break. He had to catch a breather or something.
One of the main notes that I took about this song is you see those memes on the internet all the time now that are like when the breakdown comes back but slower. But this song is the opposite because the breakdown comes back but is faster because it could not have possibly been slower. They could not have made it slower.
That doom part hits, right? And then you can't go any slower because you just stop.
Right.
That slow part is like, we did our Thou deep dive. Like that is like kind of quintessential Thou. Like,
yeah,
here's the slow and heavy. But like Crowbar is just like, what can we do? We've hit this part. What can we do to kind of build the pace back up? And they found a new man underneath and they just like bring the swing in and like go for it.
wrong album. God damn.
I know it's the wrong album. I know it is. That's why I said it. Numb nuts.
I know it. Oh, see? I told you we'd fight.
See?
But a little later.
Wow, here we go.
See, all right.
The next song is called Existence is Punishment.
Never heard of it.
Nope. Not once.
I don't think anyone's ever said anything about the bass riff in this song.
Nope. No one's ever played it on repeat it every time they get a bass in their hands at all.
I mean, this is the song. It's one of the songs. I
think this is a love song.
This guy gave his heart to some chick. That's like 50 pounds of meat. I guess we also did miss earlier. Yeah, like this band featured on Beavis and Butthead.
Huge thing for the band.
The one quote I remember was like fucking Kirk saying that he called a friend from a payphone who had seen it and like was like, oh man, they're like calling you guys fat. They're doing this. He's like, don't care. Did they like it? I mean, yeah, I guess they did, but like, he's like, that's all that matters. And even Kirk's mom, like again, the
Mama Winstein, who had allowed this band to write and do shit in their house for so long, recorded it on VHS so he could watch it later on. Oh, honey, I'm so happy.
Is that Robin Williams' brother and Mrs.
Yeah.
Doubtfire?
Oh, who is that? He has a name though. God damn, what is
Of course he's got a name.
It's the fucking dude. It's also the bad guy in Death to Smoochie.
Yeah. I know that fucking name. God damn it.
I just remember in Independence Day, he's on the phone with his mother and he's driving and he looks at this like building being decimated and he just goes, oh shit.
Shit.
Are you looking up the name of that actor?
Yeah, he's gonna fucking kill me this whole time.
Oh,
good. I hope it does.
Oh, matchmaker, make me a match. Find me a find.
Harvey,
catch
Harvey
me a catch.
Firestein.
If you were any older, you'd be mom.
Honey, I don't think I have the energy.
I don't think I have it in me. Can you make me a woman?
Anyway, Existence is Punishment. That's the song we're on.
They talked about Beavis and Butthead like being like a huge part, like kind of like also, how that I'm Broken video would like probably get a lot of people into it. This also got a lot of people into Crowbar. But I mean, it's like the quintessential track. Like I remember watching this video all the time after you introduced it to me. I mean, the opening bass line to the drums, and then when the fucking guitar harmonies kick in, like,
it's the treble riff.
Yeah.
That's the Trouble Cathedral riff.
Aurora, Illinois' own Trouble. Gotta put that in there.
The way the vocals kick in with the drums when they do finally kick in is fucking great. The kind of minor third harmony that's playing is tremendous. Kirk is real melodic on this track, maybe the most so on the whole record.
Like vocally?
Even with this, vocally, yes.
I have a different opinion about that.
Interesting. Shut up. Go ahead.
Now, I'll get to my opinion later.
I agree with Dylan. I think the verse riff kind of takes a back seat. It's more of like a foundational thing, and I think that Kirk's like vocal melody is more so the focal point than anything. And then you get the chord like you can't take. That's where like the chugs, and that's where that kind of more so shines. I think he definitely has more of a melodic feel, and
he's a little more confident in that part for sure. Like he's definitely digging in a little bit more with the melodic aspects of what he's influenced by. There's a drum fill at about 1:48 in that kicks into kind of that hardcore adjacent riff that is just fucking great. Like I think the MVP on this record is Craig.
Other than just the general songwriting, the MVP is Greg.
Yeah, Craig is like the kind of he's the hidden goat of the record.
I wrote that like that tom fill going from the first verse into the first chorus is like the bolt of lightning that gives birth to Frankenstein's monster.
Oh, that's cool.
That fill is that for me. Like,
like when
like that drum fill just gives me life.
I guess it's like really if I guess kind of like even you talk about like editing or like you talk about the if you don't notice it necessarily. Like when I remember listening to this record for the first time, I don't know if drumming was necessarily the first thing that I remember listening to, but maybe subconsciously because it does take such a foundational place in the record that maybe it's just if you don't notice it necessarily, maybe it's not like that you're doing a good job, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I will say I think on a lot of songs on this too, and I think we kind of mentioned it maybe on some other records recently, that while maybe the songs are mostly 2 or 3 parts, I feel like they do add a thing here or there. Like especially on this song, like when it kind of goes into the intro, they add like another harmony. I'm pretty sure.
There's
like,
stuff
like that, or like an effect on a guitar. So it's like, yeah, it's the same thing, but maybe there's something slightly different about it that kind of like adds a different vibe that kind of like changes it up for you.
It seems like there's a 4th harmony kicking in right before the end of the song for sure. Yes, there's kind of a variation of a lot of the tracks. The songs are so simple, so you can build upon that fundamental, right, and add a slight different feel here, or the note is played in a different position here. The vocal goes high instead of low, but it's the same note, right? Like it adds a lot of different, inflections here and there for sure. But then we segue into Holding Nothing, which might be the track I forget is on the record.
I think the last 2, you guys were talking about, the cover. I feel like the last 2 are great tracks.
Mm-hmm.
Not my favorite 2 tracks of the record.
Oh my God.
I fucking love I Have Failed.
Oh my God.
Not my favorite 2 tracks of the record.
Oh my God.
The great tracks.
Oh my God.
The guitar harmony intro, Holding Nothing.
Yes.
Awesome. I do love that it is literally a lot of the lyrical stuff is like so fun on this because it kind of feels like very straightforward and just like literally he has that like fade in vocal thing which is like holding nothing.
Yes.
Even with the guitar harmony thing in the intro, like even the bass kind of mirrors that you can
I think the bass comes in early.
Really? Like
yeah, like it feels like it should have came in when the drums came in, but it comes in one measure earlier. where it's just guitars and then like the bass kicks in. It almost like has a, and again, like total like youthful decision, right? Total like inexperienced decision of that. Like my brain would go, wait till the drums kick in, then I'll bring it in. Let the guitars do it.
They have that the opening riff is cool. It's like a descending kind of like doom riff.
Mhm.
The
Absolutely.
Fucking verse riff though, like outside of the intro, is like a fucking march. It's so I think that's like this focal point. That's the standout part of the song for me. It's just so fucking heavy.
I noted that the chorus of the song on guitar kind of isn't even there. Like it's mostly just vocals and like toms. The beat is kept on the toms for this. It's the guitar on the chorus is like, it's essentially just like noise that is being played under vocals and drums.
The toms I have in my notes here, the toms in the verses are really like fucking stellar. Just like, again, Craig Nunemaker, like just playing all over this fucking record without overstepping, without like pushing everything, very tastefully done drums. It all makes sense. Crowbar has been plagued with really good drummers. It really has. Like plagued with really good drummers. Like there are worse things to be plagued with. And there's multiple guitar harmonies on this track. But again, like on the album, this is the track that kind of, I forget it's there. Like I'll listen to it. I'm like, oh, that's right. This track's on this record.
But unlike this song, fucking I Have Failed, the last song on the record,
should have been the third single.
How could you think that it should be cut?
I didn't think it should be cut. It's just not my favorite song on the record. That's not what I said.
Listen.
That's not what I said.
You're not 35 yet. Listen.
You won't have an appreciation for I Have Failed
if I had a fucking nickel for every time Dylan called me young on the show, like, shut the fuck up.
You're going to call us in 5 years and be like, all right.
I get it.
I get it.
I'll take back what I said.
It's not my, if I had to like take my pick of favorites, I don't think this is necessarily my favorite. I think it's a good song. I don't think it should be cut. I think this record is perfect the way it is. It's not my favorite song.
I know what Swindle's going to say when the vocals kick in at 40. Those are hyper melodic vocals.
Yes.
That's 100. I knew right when you were going to kick in.
The vocals for this song, to me, are the most melodic vocals on the album, and it seems more like Oddfellows Rest vocals than anything on this album.
Thank you so much for mentioning that, because this track feels like the precursor to Planets Collide to me.
Yeah.
The way the verse riff is set up and everything, the way the verse is, like 150%. Like this is the first instance of Kirk really opening himself up, I think, and going, yes, and really like allowing himself to be really open and go, hey, I can do this. This feels comfortable. And maybe it did take that slight nudge from like, hey man, it's Phil, your buddy. It's me, your daddy, Roberto. Like, do this thing.
Yeah.
Like, you can do it. You can fucking do it, bud.
I think there are like definitely points on the album where he's melodic in that gruff voice. This is certainly the most singy.
Yes.
He's actually, what you're saying. This is definitely, I would agree. I didn't consider it in terms of like later records, but I would agree this is like a precursor to Oddfellows Rest, Planets Collide.
And it's the connector, right? It's the connector of what's to come. And it's cool that it's the last track, because it is like, here's what we can do and here's what you're going to see in the future without really even knowing it as a band. It's just a step they took. Like the vocals kicking in, the riff, the verse riff kind of isn't even really a riff. It's just an arpeggiated set of chords, or a chord progression kind of.
The chorus is cool though.
Yeah, the chorus is great. I love the variation of how he does it too. there have been very few songs that could use the word fuck in such a very poignant way. I have fucking failed. I have motherfucking failed.
Yeah. The way
Like,
it just ends on that is
so
it's
good.
incredible.
Also that going from that bridge into the last chorus when they do the 4 fucking snare hits and hi-hat hits with the guitar, like da 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 da, like that is such an effective way to get into the last chorus before this album just
It's the exclamation points, right? Like da 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 da, like just right into it. And I mean, lyrically, it's a man living in his own head, right? It's a man living in his own head, knowing what they have to deal with, knowing what is expected of them, knowing what society expects of them, and all of that. And then like the band kicks in at that right point with the snare hits and everything, like kicks right in, and the whole band is just pushing forward, and it's fucking heavy. And the fact that this ends on "I motherfucking failed" is
and
just
it does just fucking
it
end.
just abrupt, right? Like ends.
Monster's dead. It's over. Universal.
Monster's dead. I'm dead.
Right.
Like it's just a very sad record. Like a very like overall, if you look at it, like the positives are outweighed by the negatives.
Were there positives on this record?
You mentioned it in the first track. Self-inflicted seemed very
that was
like
I
alpha.
mean, I don't know if it was positive. It was just like it felt like a domination over someone else.
It's kind of like listening to the Nervous Breakdown EP, where like the first track he's very positive, and it just goes further downhill. What a fucking record this is.
Yeah, I mean, like 36 minutes, as Swindle mentioned, kind of the perfect length. I fucking love that.
The perfect length for this record. There are much shorter records that I've listened to that have seemed a lot fucking longer.
Yeah,
but this
that Siege record,
this 36-minute record feels like 15 or.
I have listened to EPs where I've been like, is this fucking over yet?
Right.
Like,
right.
Yeah.
10-minute EPs. And I'm like, why are you releasing this? And then I listen to this Crowbar record, and I've done it like often. And I go, fuck.
Shit, I'm already on I've failed.
I've barely drank my coffee. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Like, this is fucking great. Being able to release one of your classic records, your second album in as your sophomore record, is a fucking feat. Like, and not knowing that you're going to release another genre-defying and, band-defying album, 6-7 years later in Oddfellows Rest, and like basically helping further this kind of stoner doom classic heavy metal kind of genre you've got going on. And, this album helped this band open up into what it is. There's a reason Crowbar is this legendary band. They've kind of hit this Motorhead kind of vibe too, where you know what you're going to get. You know how he sounds, you know what to expect, you know what he's going to write about, and everything he's involved with, be it Down, be it Kingdom of Sorrow, be it his solo project, anything like that. Hell, he was on an Ingested track a handful of years ago.
That's true.
And it's fucking wild.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they're the Motorhead of this era, in that like they're road dogs. They're constantly
touring.
My
God.
They live on the road. I mean, kind of like Kirk has always had his ear to the underground. I mean, the past couple tours, they've had like Morbid Visions from Arkansas on the tour. So like super newer band, I would say. So yeah, I mean, you're just gonna, you see them, they're gonna play great. I mean, they care so much about what they do. And I mean, they live the lifestyle, and every record is consistent. We've always said that, like what you listen to is exactly what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a great Crowbar record.
There's no bad Crowbar record. Truthfully, there's not a bad one. There are some you may enjoy more than others, and that could change, right? Like you could go like, I really want to listen to Sonic Excess today, or I want to listen to Oddfellows Rest or whichever, there's not a bad Crowbar record. They're just different. That's kind of the sign of a really cool band, is you get different records. It still sounds like the band, but it's slightly different in just a different way, right? Like their newer records sound definitely more modern. Like there's a modern influence to them, right? There's probably more of like early 2000s kind of hardcore vibe to them even then.
They're a
you
lot
have
cleaner.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Like there's less, the production has definitely helped this band out a lot. Like you get to hear Kirk and, 30 years on sound like a grizzled old man, because he is. And that's what you want. Like you want an artist to be able to age and do it appropriately, right? You may not enjoy the entire album, but you can definitely say there's at least 3 to 4 awesome fucking songs on each record.
Kind of like Cannibal. It's a Cannibal thing too, where it's
absolutely.
like maybe the whole record isn't like, stellar. I mean, maybe that's not the right word, but like usually get a great record, but then you at least also get like a few songs that get added to the set.
That will be the live set statement.
Yeah.
100%. Like you look at a track like Walk with Knowledge Wisely.
Yeah,
and
man.
Like
Incredible song.
Great fucking song.
Yeah.
Really cool song. And Kirk's like, yeah, we went to drop A on this one. It's like, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you do whatever you want, man. We're hook, line, and sinker in on this. And it's the fact that you have a classic heavy metal band. That's kind of what Crowbar is, right? Like it's everything that like, except that Judas Priest, that Iron Maiden, all those classic heavy metal bands like that are, except there's just a little bit of nuance to it. The songwriting's there. That's it, right? Like I think we can all agree that good song's a good song. Be it if it's a 35-second grind track or a power violence track, or if it's an 8-minute death doom opus, or if it's, a 2.5-minute technical death metal thing. Like if a song is good, you're hooked. And Kirk and Crowbar know how to write a fucking song.
So, kind of as Dylan mentioned, aftermath of this record, I think the biggest thing is that it really opened them up to be able to like tour and get management and, be on buses like for the first time. Like been doing this for quite a while. So they were like finally starting to kind of, move up, the hill like a little bit. They were starting to get some accolades. The touring, I definitely want to know. The first tour after the release of this record I found was they basically opened for like Sacred Reich headlining
That's
tour.
crazy.
Sacred Reich had spent much of this year, or at least like so it was like March of '93. They opened for Pantera, and then they released their third record, Independent, which came out in February of that year. They
The major
followed up
label
with-
record, wasn't it?
I believe so. I think they were kind of a weird band where they were like on the cusp of doing, they were signed to a major, I believe. I mean, shit, I don't know if this was the time of Encino Man. They were in that movie as well.
That's right.
But they picked up one of those thrash bands like at the time of like, hey, Metallica's big, like
Yep.
hey, Megadeth's the thing. So Independent, 93, they toured with Pantera. They went on a European tour, and then they also opened for Danzig through July and August of 93 as well. They closed out the year with like their own headlining tour, and they basically had Souls at Zero, who I did not know at first, but then upon further research was like, oh, Wrathchild America, which was like a thrash band that I was into when I was like really young. They had changed their name when they apparently like changed their sound to fit more of an Exorder Pantera thing. So they were kind of like a change of the times. They just changed their name completely. And then Crowbar also was on supporting of this tour. And then, so the year ends out, fast forward to like April, they supported Pantera on a handful of U.S. states after the release of Far Beyond Driven.
You supported possibly the last big heavy metal band essentially like pure heavy metal band. I'll say that because like there's a couple bands that got really big that maybe were, you know, like Korn was massive, but like you look at like that, you're touring on an album that debuted at #1, and it's like, hey fuckers, before you see us, you bunch of bald fucking like haggled tooth knuckleheads that enjoy this band, you're gonna bear witness to everything we enjoy. So here's Crowbar, here's I Hate God, here's Soylent Green, here's, you know, so on, Typo Sepultura, like, you know, you fucking name it. And Phil's like, hey, let's book Crowbar. Let's have them play in front of everybody.
Here's this band
And
I had a hand in, like, with this record, you know.
Those Broken Glass videos are comparable to those Pantera videos. I have seen Kirk's nuts more than I've ever wanted to see in my entire life.
Right out of the gate. It's like Coors Light, Kirk's nutsack right on top. I mean,
Jimmy Bauer, teeth out, just like.
So funny. I mean, yeah, there was the time, again, getting introduced to these bands, you watch those like home videos, and it covers like that tour with Pantera, covers their tour with Paradise Lost, which was like their icon tour, one of their big records. They had a European tour in '95 with Cathedral.
Hell yeah.
It has like, no, I don't think that band existed yet. Then and it even like shows the behind the scenes shit with the music videos as well in the beginning.
Fucking hate him. I mean, that's a Pantera tie-in, so like,
yeah, oh yeah,
power to you.
So I mean, all said and done, I mean, start at the beginning. Really, this is where I mean, I like you said, for you to figure it out on your second record,
man,
like
yeah,
and
wild shit,
and be able to release maybe not a record that met the heights of this one, right? This album sold 100,000 copies on a very small independent label. And if maybe it had a little bit more backing, probably would have went gold, at least in the 90s, right? Like, who fucking knows what this band could have done? And maybe we wouldn't have been as excited about it. You know, maybe it would have been a flash in the pan. But they've consistently, that's the word, consistent. They have released a fun, good record every time. You could look at a list of Crowbar records and be like, yeah, this one's not as good as that one. Not a single one of them is bad. We addressed that at the top of the episode. There's not a single bad Crowbar record. And, you know, there's not many bands I can say that with. Like, even when it comes to like a band that I'm a major fan of, like Cannibal Corpse, I'm not a big fan of like Eaten Back to Life or Butchered at Birth. Like, those aren't great records to me, but I can listen to Crowbar and go, hey, put on the new record, put on, you know, put on Life's Blood for the Downtrodden, put on Equilibrium, put on any of those. I'm going to enjoy it, and I'm going to get 45 minutes of just rad fucking music. And it's such a great, consistent band. They're still going. It's 30 years fucking on. Like, Kirk is a lifer at this point. I mean, he's 60 plus at this point. He's very well respected amongst the community, and like anything he does, you know, anytime there's an interview, we're circulating it amongst us three. It's not often you get a band like this.
Yeah.
And I would think there are a ton of bands that represent what this New Orleans kind of stoner, doom, sludge kind of sound is. And I know a lot of the bands don't like to be labeled with that, but it really helps us out because there is a certain kind of quality to this New Orleans music. You know, it's bands as vast as like Thou, I Hate God. You even look at Exhorter, you could throw them into it. You even look at bands like Heart Machine, or not Heart Machine, sorry, they suck. But you look at like a band like Harp, which is really good. And there's a quality to them. You know, with Louisiana, New Orleans, anything adjacent, you're going to get a pretty good quality band. And I would say the descriptor of the sludge sound are two bands. It's I Hate God, it's Crowbar.
Yeah.
I think that's it. That's it. And everything else is really good, but those are the two that probably describe it the best.
They don't sound, it's again, and they talk about it a lot, where it's like, you know, as outsiders, you read the articles, you do this thing, and it's like, man, this like, what in Seattle, this grunge sound, or like this New Orleans thing and this sludge sound. It's like none of those bands sounded anything like each other, not one bit. So it's great that like, yeah, you get this band like Crowbar that is truly the staple of like what I think when I think of like the New Orleans sound. Like that to me is the pinnacle of it. I can't, yeah.
There are many members of that kind of like Louisiana group that would be considered the kind of penultimate people, like the flagship people. Jimmy Bower probably being one of them, Kirk being one of them, I'd say Phil being one of them, and Sammy being one of them. And you could throw in like Pepper. Obviously, most of his career was based out of the Carolinas with COC, but like throw Pepper into that. Like those are kind of the guys, right? Like those are the guys you think of when you think of that era. And Kirk is always going to be thrown in there. Like Kirk is always going to be top 2, top 3.
Swindle, any final thoughts on Crowbar?
This is again the perfect length album. I think it moves along so quickly. The songs are so well written. There's not, even though like the cover isn't my favorite thing in the history of the world, I still think it like ultimately it fits into this album, and like I think it's good being there. The songs are well written. The drums are super fucking interesting to listen to. The drummer so creative. And it's fucking sad. And the album makes me want to, somehow it makes me want to lay in a ball in a fetal position on my floor, but also want to go run on a treadmill at the same time. And I don't really know how that's possible, but it accomplishes those things.
Recommendations? Shall we?
Yes. Yep.
Sure.
All right. We're kind of like ending the year off, so I feel like I've been kind of going back to stuff that I just comfort listen, which is funny to say for this recommendation. Burning Witch. I've been listening to a lot of the Crippled Lucifer compilation, which basically combines the 2 EPs together, Riff, Canyon Dreams, and Towers together. Doom band from Seattle. Basically formed off of Thor's Hammer when that band dissolved. It's like the precursor to, Sun and Southern Lord and all that shit. But you basically have Jamie Sykes, Stephen O'Malley, Greg Anderson. I don't think Greg is on any of the actual recorded material, but Thor's Hammer ends. You have those 3 members. They form this band. Some members of like Goatsnake and whatever. But they even recorded a bit with Steve Albini, which is really rad. They put some stuff out on Slap-A-Ham, which is also wild to think about. We're definitely gonna be doing an episode on this band in 2025, so stay tuned for that. But it's just crushing. I mean, the vocals are great. It goes from this like weird fucking visceral high pitched thing to some of the more like singy kind of doom metal stuff, but I like it a lot. It's a lot of fun. So check it out if you haven't listened to it. Swindle.
I'm gonna wreck the album Hate Training by the band Punitive Damage. This album came out at the end of October. It may be less than 10 minutes. It is less than 10 minutes long. 6 songs. It's probably less than 8 minutes long. It's fucking hardcore punk for hardcore punk's sake. Listen to it because it's fun and short and angy. Oh boy, is it angy.
So, it's Christmas time. We've had the saddest Christmas thing we could ever talk about, although we enjoyed it. But I have to go back to what we discussed last year. And that is the greatest Christmas album ever written.
I didn't know
and
you
that
had
is
it
the
on vinyl.
Yes, I sure do. It's green. It's the greatest Christmas record ever made. It's the Twisted Sister, Twisted Christmas. It's fun. It's hokey. There's references to classic bands on there. There are references to prior tracks written by the band. It's a lot of fun. It's catchy. I've listened to this album every Christmas multiple times in a row since it came out. It's one of my favorite things to listen to. It's on par with King Diamond's "No Presents for Christmas" for me. Red Water by Typo Negative. Santa Claus is Coming to Town by Bruce Springsteen. And it's just a perfect Christmas thing to listen to, especially when you need to pick me up after this Crowbar record. The other thing that I have to suggest is an album we will be digging into later in 2025 or earlier in 2025 even, which is Soylent Green's A Deleted Symphony for the Beaten Down. This is one of the wildest and craziest fucking like New Orleans records I've ever heard ever. It's fucking bonkers. It's grind. It's death metal. There's sludge. There's doom aspects to it. You got Ben Falgu like just like a fucking vulture all over this record. Can't wait to discuss it.
Hell yeah.
Wrong band.
We got you from both ends.
Check it out. The links are below if you want to check out any of the new music. Speaking of new music, we also have playlists that are linked below as well. We have Hits from the Crypt, Apple Music, Riffs on Repeat as well on Spotify. Save that one. Reviews from the Dillbozer's Den, YouTube. Check that out. Dylan coming out with all sorts of reviews of contemporary records that he thinks you should check out. It's a great time over there. Shit. What a year well spent. All the Yuletide. It's been a thing.
It's funny to think about this, but we're almost 2 years in on this too. You know, we're closer to 100 episodes than we are, one episode, right? It's interesting to see how far we've came and how far the quality has just dipped in what we're doing. This episode is very evident of that. But it's something to take a look at too, because we're still interested in this shit. We're still listening to records we love. We're still going to talk about records we love. Some albums we may not like at all, and we just talk about because we've never listened to them at all, right?
Like the Nail Bomb record?
Like the what?
Like the Nail Bomb record?
Oh, there have been other ones too. But that one's...
Sometimes we just need the money. All the money that we get from talking about these records.
Definitely.
You're getting paid? You're getting paid for this? It's been a hell of a year. We got a crazy year coming up with what we've got in the can, like coming on. We got a lot of records we're big fans of that we're going to talk about. We're going to dig into, a few records and a few different stylistic choices that maybe we wouldn't normally think we'd dig into. I think with Swindle and I's Dead Kennedy episode we kind of opened up the door to dig in some more punk and hardcore stuff that we've kind of not necessarily avoided, but maybe haven't just jumped into. I can tell you this. These two guys are going to pick more doom metal. Dill's burnt out.
Rest up.
Oh, there's a couple of them.
Well, follow us at Riff Worship Pod, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can also email us at riffworshippod@gmail.com. For myself, for Swindle, for Dylan, for the last time in 2024. We love you. Thank you for listening to us. Get sad. Listen to Crowbar. Bye.
Happy holidays. Happy holidays.